So this is my first day working with this horse. Every time I get a client horse, I kind of start from ground zero so I can meet them exactly where they're at. I had just saddled him and went into the round pen to free lunge him, and this was his reaction. He hasn't been rode since the fall, and this is the first time he's had a back cinch on, so he might have been a little fresh or irritated by that. As long as he's bucking, I keep asking him to run, and once he takes a few good strides of a lope, I take the pressure off and let him trot. And then I'll ask again and repeat the process until he's loping quietly. Here he had a few good strides outside of the camera view, so I took the pressure off and went over and let him have a little break and pet him before asking again. Here he reacts again when I ask him to lope off, so I just repeat this process until he's loping smoothly. And this is the part where I realized the camera looked terrible facing into the sun, but this is the results of what we were working on. We're asking him to lope, he takes a few nice strides, and then I take the pressure off and let him choose his own speed. I just repeat this a few times until I'm confident that he's figured it out, and then I do it both directions as well. One thing I noticed about this horse that I really liked is that when I asked him to turn, the majority of the time he would turn towards me instead of into the panels. This just shows that he's being attentive to me and isn't looking to run away. After that, I tied a bag to each side of the saddle to see what he thought of that. I forgot my lunge whip outside the round pen, so I just went to go grab that and let him get used to them and figure out what they were by himself. He ended up actually being pretty okay with the bags once he got his initial reaction out. And then I just repeated my free lunging exercise a couple times with the bags on. He didn't really have an issue with this at all. And then I spent a few minutes desensitizing further with the bags. If I shake it and I don't get a reaction, I give him a little pet and release the pressure. And if I shake it and I do get a reaction, then I just keep on the pressure until he accepts it, and then I take off the pressure. Once I was done working with the bags, I took him off the saddle, and I like to leave him in the arena so that he can still get used to them from a different angle. So this is a way of me asking him and saying, I know you're okay with the bags on your back now, but what do you think of them on the ground? And as you can see, he was eyeing them a little bit. And I applied the same principle where I applied pressure with it, kicking it towards him until he stopped reacting, and then I took the pressure off and kicked the bag away. Then we worked on moving our hind end around a little bit. I'm looking for his hind foot to cross over in front of his other hind foot for 2 strides in a row, and then I take off the pressure and ask again. And of course, what you do to one side, you do to the other side, so we just repeated the same thing on the other side. One of the first things I noticed about this horse was that he liked to push into pressure instead of give to it. The first thing I did was put a rope halter on him instead of one of those flat buckle up ones that he came with, so that I could apply a little more direct pressure with the halter. Here I'm just trying to ask him just to bend his neck without moving his feet and just give his face to me. We worked on this for quite some time, and he had some issues giving his face. He wanted to stay very rigid and straight. So round and round we went for quite some time, and fast forward to where we ended up. Eventually I got a little bit of try. See that? He bent his neck just a little without moving his feet. Give him a pet, release the pressure, and ask again. I got him to do it a couple times on this side, and once he had figured it out, moving to the other side was much easier. He understood the concept right off the bat, moving to the other side, and realized that it's easier just to turn his head and give into the pressure than it is to spin around in circles. Because he really didn't like giving to pressure, we did a few more other exercises about giving to pressure. Here I'm asking him to lower his head, and as soon as he gives a little bit, I give him a pet on the head. To ask him to lower it, I give a bit of pressure with my thumb and finger in kind of the divots just on the inside of his ears. And then we worked on one more exercise for good measure. Because he's a high-headed horse, I want him to know to bring his head down when there's pressure applied. So you can see off the start, when I apply pressure with the halter and my hand, he wants to throw his head up right against it initially. It took him a little bit to figure out this one as well, but eventually I got him to give to the pressure right there, and then you release the pressure, give him a pet before asking again. And here's the result of working on that for a short amount of time. Here I don't need to ask with my hand anymore. I can just put pressure on the halter and he gives to it instead of throwing his head up. And here's an exercise in getting their front end to move around by moving out of your bubble. So I just do that by blocking his eye and walking towards him, and he should move away from me. Again, I want his front leg to cross over in front of his other front leg a couple times before I take off the pressure. And of course, repeat this on both sides, as with anything. Once we're done, I unsaddle him in the same place that we're doing work, so I position him here in the middle of the round pen by the bags and take his saddle off. Even though it's a minor inconvenience to carry all my stuff back to the barn, I don't want my horses thinking of the barn as their finishing place. I don't want them to think of that as their place of rest. I want them to know that once they've done a good job, then they get the release, regardless of where they are.